The fake smallpox virus inside Chongqing has finally erupted. Shenlang then put on a great performance, turning into a witch doctor to treat Chongqing. Therefore, he came to accompany Chongqing. At this moment, after pretending to worship for a while, he stood up, picked up a bowl of dark soup, and said, "Your Majesty, please drink this bowl of divine medicine." At this time, Urutai, who had some grievances with Shenlang, blocked Chongqing's way. "Shenlang, you test the medicine first. What if you poison it?" After hearing this, Shenlang, without saying a word, directly picked up the spoon and drank it. Of course, this was just his homemade anesthesia powder. He wouldn't be foolish enough to poison Chongqing at this time. A quarter of an hour later, seeing Shenlang still standing there smiling, Chongqing dismissed his doubts and picked up the bowl to drink the medicine. Just after he drank it, a strange sensation instantly swept through his body. "This Shenlang is impressive. I just drank the medicine, and I can hardly feel the pain anymore." Seeing that the medicine was starting to take effect, Shenlang then turned around and had people strip Chongqing of his clothes to start the next step of treatment. At this time, the varicella blisters that erupted from Chongqing's body were very terrifying. If it weren't for Shenlang being a surgeon in his past life, he probably couldn't bear such a harsh sight. This human herpes virus is only scary to look at. If treated with modern medical methods, only acyclovir combined with lubiprostone would be needed. Of course, these medicines are not available here, but Shenlang is a miraculous doctor, so how could such a small matter stump him? He took out an exquisitely made jade bottle from his bosom, which he specially concocted for treating herpes with herbal ointment. Wearing gloves, he applied the ointment to Chongqing's body. Because the ointment included menthol and borneol, the cool comfort made Chongqing involuntarily let out a comfortable sigh. Combined with the medicine's effect, it didn't take long before Chongqing fell into a deep sleep. At this time, Urutai suddenly walked up to Shenlang and whispered, "Mr. Shen, could you please step outside for a moment?" Such a polite attitude surprised Shenlang, but he still followed Urutai outside. Outside the house, Urutai first bowed respectfully and said, "Mr. Shen, is this really the last dose of your divine smallpox treatment?" Outside the palace of the Chong Kingdom, there are countless ordinary people infected with smallpox. "Do you have any other way to save them?" Shenlang looked thoughtful for a moment, then said, "Indeed, this is the last dose of the divine medicine." However, Shenlang paused, then continued, "Although I can't help those who have already contracted smallpox, I do have a way to ensure that those who haven't been infected will never contract smallpox." Upon hearing this, Urutai exclaimed excitedly, "Does young Master Shen mean that you have a way to rid the Chong Kingdom of the threat of smallpox forever?" Shenlang nodded and said, "Yes, you can bring a few slaves who haven't had smallpox. Let me implant the divine medicine vaccine in them to prove it. If I can't do it, you can chop off my head." Hearing Shenlang's solemn promise, Urutai immediately knelt down and said, "Thank you, Mr. Shen, for disregarding past grievances and saving tens of thousands of my Chong people. Your great kindness and virtue will never be forgotten by me. Urutai, if you truly rid us of the smallpox epidemic forever, the Jin family will become the best friend of the Chong Kingdom." After listening, Shenlang directly asked, "Can we replace the Su family as your kingdom's sole partner in the Yu Kingdom?" At this, Urutai's face showed difficulty, and he said, "Mr. Shen, I'm afraid I can't agree to completely replace them at this moment. As long as my father reigns, there are some things I can't say." Shenlang immediately understood his meaning, then said, "In that case, I won't press further. I can do my best, but I have two conditions I hope the Crown Prince can agree to." Urutai responded, "Please speak." Shenlang continued, "First, I want the group of Yu Kingdom slaves in the dungeon to be the first to receive the vaccine, and afterward, they should also follow me back to the Yu Kingdom. Second, I request that you build a Yu Kingdom temple on an empty plot of land in the Chong Kingdom as quickly as possible." After hearing this, Urutai frowned slightly. Compared to saving the lives of thousands in the Chong Kingdom, building a temple is a very simple task, but the people of the Chong Kingdom worship the heavenly god and cannot accommodate a second god. If this temple is really built, at best it would be burned down, and at worst it might lead to rebellion and chaos. Even if my father and I agree to your request, the people of the Chong Kingdom will not. Shenlang thought for a moment, realizing this was a difficult issue, and then said, "Then please ask the Crown Prince to build a large house on the empty land outside the palace. It doesn't need to be called a temple or have sculptures. I will use it to administer the smallpox vaccine to the people. If this is not acceptable, then we should no longer discuss the salvation of the Chong Kingdom." After hearing this, Urutai could only agree for the time being. Whether it could be built would depend on the Chong King's decision after being informed. 6 hours later, Chong King finally woke up. At this time, the discomfort in his body had eased much more than the day before, and most of the blisters on his body had also disappeared. Looking at himself in the mirror, Chong King was overjoyed. Shenlang is indeed a divine doctor. Such severe smallpox, and yet it's almost cured in just one night. Hearing the noise, Shenlang and Urutai entered, and Shenlang said, "Your Majesty, do not get too excited. If you want to fully recover, you will need to rest quietly for about 10 days. Chong King was overjoyed after hearing this. "Shenlang, you are truly remarkable. As long as you can cure me, I will reward you greatly." However, as soon as the words left his mouth, he suddenly felt dizzy, and then even felt an intense heat throughout throughout his body. Seeing this, Urutai quickly placed his hand on Chongqing's forehead. "It's very hot. Father, you have a fever," Shenlang quickly said. "Your Majesty, do not panic. This is just the divine medicine fighting the smallpox in your body. We just need to control the temperature so it doesn't get too high. However, if it's not controlled well, it might directly cause damage to the brain or cause blindness or deafness." Chongqing was terrified and hastily called for Shenlang to reduce his fever. Shenlang glanced at the two Chong Kingdom doctors nearby and said, "The method to reduce the fever is simple. Just follow the medical practices of your country." The Chong Kingdom doctors said, "Our method is bloodletting therapy." Shenlang nodded directly. "Then please proceed." However, despite the doctor's hectic efforts in bloodletting twice, Chongqing's high fever still did not subside. Shenlang thought to himself, amused, "Of course it's useless. If bloodletting could cure a high fever, what would we need hospitals for in modern society?" Chongqing was greatly annoyed. "You two are useless. Can't even cure a fever. What use are you?" At this point, Shenlang stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty, it seems that your high fever is not an ordinary one, so traditional bloodletting is not effective. It must be treated with a 1,000-year-old cold iron needle in my hand to bring the temperature down." To prove that the needle was non-toxic, Shenlang not only allowed the Crown Prince and the doctors to inspect it, but also deliberately cut his own arm with it. After repeated verifications, Chongqing finally relaxed and let Shenlang personally perform the bloodletting. Shenlang then took out a small packet of medicine, his own anti-inflammatory drug, which was also key for reducing fever. This time, Chongqing trusted Shenlang completely, took the medicine bowl without a word, and drank it down. Shenlang took out the cold iron needle, preparing to perform bloodletting on Chongqing. Of course, he wasn't being kind enough to treat Chongqing specially. In fact, this needle was a trick, a hollow needle. The tube of the needle had a magnetic mechanism layer, storing cyanide iron balls with a diameter of 1 millimeter. Back to the point, Shenlang carefully cut Chongqing's skin and implanted 4 highly poisonous cyanide balls into his body. After many trials, Shenlang had determined that these balls would rust through in about 2 months, by which time the poison would spread, and even gods would not be able to save him. "Just let me use you for a bit longer. Your death in 2 months will also be the best opportunity for me to eliminate the Su family." Chongqing's fake smallpox improved quickly under Shenlang's treatment. Just 2 days later, the symptoms on Chongqing's body had reduced by 80%. Since then, Chongqing revered Shenlang's medical skills profoundly. During this period, Shenlang also noticed another fortunate thing. Chongqing and Crown Prince Urutai had developed a tobacco addiction under the influence of Nicotiana. To make Chongqing and his son believe that smoking was harmless and beneficial to their health, Shenlang would occasionally join them for a smoke, although he was just pretending. Soon, on the 8th day of treatment, Chongqing had almost completely recovered. To celebrate this, Chongqing specially held a banquet for Shenlang and others. During the meal, Chongqing suddenly said, "Shenlang, are you sure you can implant your vaccine into the bodies of my Chong people, ensuring they never contract smallpox?" Shenlang humbly bowed, accepting the request. Seeing this, Chongqing took a deep drag of his cigarette and said, "Urutai told me your condition is to build a large temple in the Chong Kingdom to administer the vaccine to our people. That's simple. To save the lives of many, building a temple is a small matter. Let's do everything as you say." Hearing this, Shenlang was overjoyed and repeatedly expressed his thanks. With this, the matter of the confession letter and temple construction requested by the King of Yu was smoothly and successfully completed. Later that night, Shenlang also got to leave the palace for the first time, moving into the residence of the Yu Kingdom delegation. He intended to rest well, but as soon as he entered the room, he smelled a familiar and enchanting fragrance. Since it was dark inside, Shenlang instinctively activated his X-ray vision, but when he saw who was sitting in the corner, he was startled. It was none other than the goddess Shuayin, the Grandmaster, although she looked very unwell. Under Shenlang's examination, he found that Shuayin was trembling all over, her heartbeat was rapid, her breathing irregular, and her core temperature was extremely high, while her limbs were ice cold. Seeing this, Shenlang became anxious, thinking she might have contracted smallpox. Just as he was about to approach and ask, Shuayin's weak voice stopped him. "Young Master Shen, do not come closer, and do not light any lamps. Rest assured, I do not have smallpox. Allow me a moment to adjust my body, and I will be fine soon." Although puzzled, Shenlang could only wait nearby. Strangely, the fragrance in the surroundings suddenly became stronger, making him suspect that Shuayin's physical condition might be related to this scent. However, before he could think further, Shuayin's body suddenly began to tremble violently. This sudden symptom startled Shenlang. He heard Shuayin suppressing the sounds of pain in her body, which made him even more worried. As the fragrance around Shuayin became stronger, her shaking intensified, even causing the whole house to resonate. At that moment, Shenlang could no longer stand by in fear. He stepped forward, intending to grasp Shuayin's hand. Shenlang unexpectedly discovered that while Shuayin was running a high fever, her hands were cold as ice. Feeling Shenlang's warmth, Shuayin, afraid of harming him, hastily withdrew her hand. However, in her current condition, she couldn't control her movements and grabbed a stone stool next to her. A piece of hard stone was actually crushed into powder by her grip. Shenlang watched in horror as the stones crumbled under Shui Yin's hand, a chill running through him. Such terrifying strength. If I hadn't withdrawn my hand quickly, it would have been my hand that was crushed. Seeing this, Shui Yin had no choice but to suppress the pain in her body using her inner strength while softly comforting Shenlang. Young Master Shen, don't be afraid, just stay back. I can bear it for a while. After a full half hour, the pain Shui Yin was suffering finally subsided. She exhaled a breath of cold, dense fragrance, and Shenlang, smelling the cool and enchanting scent, involuntarily shivered. It's so fragrant. This scent could make one lose themselves in it, unable to extricate themselves. At that moment, Shui Yin suddenly spoke. Young Master Shen, you can light the lamp now. As Shenlang lit the candle inside the room, Shui Yin's graceful figure slowly walked out from the inner chamber. Seeing her still wearing a veil inside the house, Shenlang grew curious. Shui Yin suddenly lifted her veil and said, I wear a veil because my face is frozen. I cover it to avoid frightening others. The moment Shenlang saw Shui Yin's face, he was stunned by her beauty. Such a peerlessly beautiful face. However, her face was indeed frozen. Even when she spoke, her lips did not move. Seeing his reaction, Shui Yin gave a bitter smile. I am poisoned, and it's an incurable poison. Hearing the word poison, Shenlang snapped back to reality and immediately activated his X-ray vision to scan her entire body. Surprisingly, after a thorough examination from head to toe, he found no signs of poisoning, no heavy metals in the blood, and no foreign objects in the brain. Worried that he might have missed something, Shenlang asked Shui Yin to give him a few drops of blood from her finger. However, after testing, her blood also showed no abnormalities. Shenlang was puzzled. This is the first incurable condition I've encountered since coming to this world. Helpless, he could only ask Shui Yin who had poisoned her. Shui Yin hesitated for a moment, then said, it was the floating mountain in the west of the Great Flame Empire. It's as renowned as Sky's End Sea Pavilion. I had a feud with them, and soon after I killed their people, I found myself afflicted with this incurable poison. Shenlang wanted to ask more, but just then, a familiar voice came from outside. Young Master Shen, could you come out for a moment? Upon going out to the courtyard, he saw that it was Zhong Chuk, who was carrying a travel bag. Zhong Chuk's face showed signs of fatigue, and he said, Young Master Shen, you must have understood my sister's condition just now. She may only have about 10 days left. I plan to go to Floating Mountain to seek an antidote for her. I can't trust her care to anyone else. I must entrust her to you. If I truly don't return, please ensure she spends her last days happy. And about Big Fool, mentioning his disciple, Zhong Chuk spoke with reluctance. If I don't return, please hand Big Fool over to Li Qianqiu. He really lucks out. After speaking, he handed over a notebook, continuing, this is the martial arts details I summarized for Big Fool. Give it to Li Qianqiu when the time comes. Seeing Zhong Chuk as if he were making his last arrangements, Shenlang felt moved. Though without worries, I will do my utmost here to try to save Grandmaster Shui Yin. Zhong Chuk gave a wry smile and shook his head. That's the poison of Floating Mountain. Unless they want to give the antidote, it's incurable. Now my sister can no longer move from the neck up, and soon it may spread to her entire body until she is completely frozen. When she can no longer take care of herself, please find a girl to take care of her. I entrust everything about my sister to you, but if she really can't wait for my return, let her pass with dignity. With a heart full of reluctance, he resolutely set off on the unknown journey to seek the antidote. The next morning, just as Shenlang was walking to the isolation room outside the palace, Big Fool came running, crying, and knelt before him. Second Fool, please save my wife. You haven't been here for several days, and my wife's fever hasn't subsided. I'm afraid she won't make it, and if she dies, I don't want to live either. After saying this, he was about to kowtow to Shenlang. Shenlang wanted to stop him, but Big Fool's strength was so great that he ended up kneeling down as well. Although Shenlang was somewhat annoyed, seeing Big Fool's desperate look, he still comforted him. Big Fool, you have to believe me. I won't let anything happen to Arunana. Big Fool nodded vigorously after hearing this, but still said worriedly, Second Fool, my wife's body is burning hot, and she's talking nonsense. Is she really okay? Shenlang was startled. High fever is a typical symptom of smallpox. Big Fool's intelligence. How could he judge that Arunana was talking nonsense? Puzzled, Big Fool continued, my wife says she loves me and doesn't want me to leave. If she can say something like that, Second Fool, do you think she might have been muddled by the fever? Shenlang was at a loss for words upon hearing this. Arunana was touched by her foolish brother, after all. In that case, he decided to go the extra mile. Thinking this, he directly said, Big Fool, since you want to save your wife, then listen to my instructions. Go now, strip her of all her clothes, and then use cooled warm water to wipe down her body. Remember, you must wipe every inch of her skin, then change her into clean cotton clothes. Do this once a day without fail, understood? After speaking, he took out a packet of medicine and handed it over. Remember to have Huang Feng brew this medicine for her to drink. In a few days, I'll return to you a lively and jumping wife. Big Fool replied repeatedly, okay. Seeing the medicine packet handed by Shenlang, Big Fool was so excited that he forgot to say thank you, and instead turned and ran excitedly towards the isolation room. At this moment, inside the isolation room, Arunana had awakened and was panicking and throwing a fit in the absence of Big Fool. Just then, Big Fool ran in holding the small medicine packet. Wife, Second Fool has brought your medicine. After you take it, your illness will get better. better. Without waiting for any reaction from Arunana, he walked up and ripped off her clothes. It was precisely when Arunana's body was most severely afflicted with blisters, and her body, covered in pox, appeared monstrous to Big Fool. However, Big Fool paid it no mind and swiftly stripped her bare. This sudden action also startled Huang Feng, who was nearby, causing him to quickly turn around. It's incredible. Big Fool, such a pure person, after talking to Shenlang for a while, turned into such a rogue. That Shen 13, having been with that scoundrel for so long, could he also have been badly influenced? A moment later, Big Fool's explanation, Arunana finally calmed down and let him wipe her body. Although still a bit shy, she gladly accepted it in her heart because, of course, it was Big Fool. At this point, Arunana suddenly asked, "Big Fool, aren't you worried about getting infected by me?" Big Fool didn't even think before answering, "As long as you get better, wife, I'm not afraid of anything." At these words, Arunana immediately burst into tears. Even her own parents and siblings were avoiding her, yet this foolish big man stayed here fearlessly. With such a man by her side, what more could she ask for? At this moment, witnessing this loving scene, even Huang Feng, standing nearby, was moved by Big Fool's actions and began to miss her own Shen 13. In the following days, under Shenlang's care, Chongqing fully recovered. However, outside the palace, the epidemic among the Chong people was escalating. Countless people prayed outside the palace, hoping Chongqing would save them. Crown Prince Arutai initially wanted to massacre these infected people as before, but was sternly stopped by Shuayin. Because of this, Chongqing had to send an additional 5,000 people to control the situation. Following Shenlang's request, and working overtime, a simple large temple was built in just 4 days. Under the guise of presenting a grand gift to Chongqing, Shenlang had the Heavenly Path Society deliver thousands of mirrors. However, what was not known was that the delivery of mirrors was just a pretext. Hidden in secret compartments in the wagons were iron rods wound with copper wire, which he had specially ordered to be made. This was what he truly needed. Now that the materials were ready, it was time for him to personally remodel the newly built temple. After working through the night, by the next day, the large temple had been transformed into a sacred temple. At this moment, standing inside the simple sacred temple and looking at the statue of Confucius, Shenlang couldn't help feeling exhilarated. Success is near. Shenlang successfully saved tens of thousands of Chong people. I will become the savior of the entire Chong nation. As night fell, behind a sheer curtain, Shuayin was bathing in a wooden tub, while Shenlang, who had been busy all day, did not rest but instead was searching for the strange cause of Shuayin's illness using his medical knowledge and smart brain. Despite racking his brains and scrolling through all the data in the smart brain, he still couldn't find a solution. Shenlang was at his wit's end, unable to determine what poison had afflicted Shuayin. Was he really going to watch Shuayin die right before his eyes? Seeing no progress and to alleviate his anxiety, Shenlang simply started a conversation with Shuayin. "Aunt Shuayin, knowing your days are numbered, why do you still rush about every day to help those infected? Is it out of sympathy for them?" Shuayin paused for a moment, then replied, "It is to atone for sins and to accumulate virtue for that person. Although I don't know if that person still exists, my heart tells me that the fire will reappear." Shenlang, hearing this cryptic response, became even more confused. "What are you talking about? It's so complicated, so hard to understand." However, just at that moment, a pained moan suddenly came from behind the curtain, followed by a scent stronger than before filling the air. Shenlang was immediately alarmed. "Are you having an attack again? Don't worry, I'll call someone to wipe you down right now." But before he could leave, Shuayin stopped him. "Shenlang, no need to trouble others. Come in and help me wipe down and dress, then carry me to the bed." Shenlang was taken aback by her request. "How could I? Aunt Shuayin is a grandmaster and a woman, and right now she has nothing on. I don't have the courage to go in." Seeing that Shenlang didn't move, Shuayin realized his hesitation and said, "It's okay, Shenlang. I know you respect me, so even if you see, it won't matter." Hearing Shuayin's words, Shenlang's throat tightened, and he was so nervous he felt like his heart might jump out. He adjusted his mindset, pulled back the curtain, and went inside. However, just as he approached the tub, a noise suddenly came from outside the door. Following this, a group of monks from Snow Mountain Temple, shouting angrily, kicked open the door. "Shenlang, how dare you establish a Yu Kingdom sacred temple in Chong Nation, competing with Snow Mountain Temple for the faith of the people? You're practically seeking death." Inside the tub, Shuayin calmly sensed the monk's presence outside and then said to Shenlang, "Shenlang, quickly grab the robe and cover me, then get in the tub and stay with me." Hearing Shuayin's request, Shenlang was startled, but as the footsteps approached, he put aside concerns about propriety, quickly covered Shuayin with the robe, and then jumped into the tub himself. However, just as he steadied himself, he suddenly felt the softness behind him. Shenlang instantly succumbed. Damn, so big, so soft. Combined with the fragrance emanating from the goddess's body, it was truly intoxicating, irresistible. Such bliss came so unexpectedly, but the bliss lasted only a moment as the group of monks suddenly flung open the curtain. Seeing the two people in the tub, the monks immediately became excited. The goddess is even indulging in a paired bath. The outside world's tales of a saintly, pure woman are all lies. Hearing the vile words of the despicable monks, Shenlang was furious but powerless to resist. One of the monks even rushed forward attempting to take advantage of Shuayin while she was incapacitated by her illness. Just then, Shen 13 charged in with troops, preventing the atrocity. However, Shenlang knew well the capabilities of his own troops. Starting a fight would undoubtedly be like sending them to slaughter. At a loss for what to do, Shuayin suddenly spoke from behind him. Shenlang, have your men withdraw, then you and I switch places, and use my hands to cover your ears. Without a moment's hesitation, Shenlang shouted, 13, get everyone out of this room now. Shen 13, though confused, obeyed the order and quickly led the men out of the room. Shen 13, still puzzled, knew his master would never suffer a disadvantage, so he reluctantly complied. Seeing this, the group of vile monks burst into scornful laughter. You kingdom people really are all cowardly wretches. Pretty boy, looks like you know how formidable we are. However, amidst their laughter, Shenlang had already switched places according to Shuayin's instructions and covered his ears with her hands. The lead monk turned around and saw their strange actions. As he wondered what was happening, Shuayin suddenly let out a terrifyingly high-pitched sonic wave from her throat. The sound was not loud, but it had strong penetrating power, even passing straight through the house. Even the soldiers outside felt discomfort, while the dozen monks inside suffered splitting headaches, writhing in pain. Before long, they collapsed, bleeding from every orifice. However, at that moment, Shuayin, already stricken by illness, reached the limit of her strength and spat out a mouthful of blood. Shenlang, though very worried, knew that if he did not take the opportunity to deal with the evil monks, they would be the ones to die next. He leapt out of the bathtub, found a dagger hidden under the bed, and approached the fallen monks. Although Shenlang had no martial arts skills, his method as a divine healer was very efficient in killing. One knife per monk, no hesitation. Just as he was about to dispatch the last one, the monk suddenly opened his eyes and regained consciousness. Shenlang was startled and froze. However, just in the nick of time, a great force struck the monk's forehead, and the next second, the monk's head burst open and he fell to the ground. It took a while for Shenlang to recover from the shock. He quickly looked back and saw that the tub had been kicked into by Shuayin's feet, and she was shaking uncontrollably inside it. Shenlang was immensely worried and rushed over. He knew without thinking that Shuayin had used the last of her strength to break through her body's limits to save him, further exacerbating her already severe condition. At that moment, holding Shuayin's rigid and powerless body felt like holding a block of ice. Seeing this, he quickly lifted Shuayin onto the bed, dried her body, and covered her with a blanket. After settling her, he called Shen 13, quickly heat another tub of water for Grandmaster Shuayin. After a pause, he added, also, have someone chop up those monks' bodies and feed them to the vultures. I believe this scene will draw out the person behind this. Moments later, Shenlang changed into dry clothes and ordered people to move Shuayin into his own bedroom. At that moment, seeing Shuayin in great pain on the bed, Shenlang felt moved. Thank you for your help earlier. I may not be able to lessen your pain, but I can offer you some warmth. He then lifted the blanket and lay down next to Shuayin, holding her tightly. After half an hour of suffering, Shuayin finally exhaled deeply, marking the end of her toxin release. She looked at Shenlang, slowly thanked him, and then said, I pushed my body too hard just now and caused too much damage. I'll need your help to clean my body again. Half an hour later, after the bath, Shuayin sat quietly, letting Shenlang comb her hair. Both were silent until Shenlang spoke. It's getting late. You should rest. Your bedroom was destroyed by those monks, so you can sleep here tonight, and I'll sleep outside. Unexpectedly, Shuayin stopped him. Tonight, you should sleep here with me. I am a dying person, and having you by my side for my last moments is also a kind of fate. Shuayin's words stunned Shenlang. What did she mean? Could he really do that? Shenlang lay next to Shuayin, tossing and turning, unable to sleep due to the captivating fragrance emanating from her. At this moment, Shenlang felt as if his heart was being scratched, restless and itching. Lying beside such a stunningly beautiful woman, so close yet untouchable, would likely stir forbidden thoughts in any normal man. Just then, Shuayin suddenly opened her beautiful eyes and softly asked, Are you unable to sleep? Seeing Shenlang's flushed face, Shuayin didn't say much, but leaned closer to his ear and whispered a spell. The next second, Shenlang fell into a deep sleep, dreamless throughout the night. The next morning, upon waking, Shenlang found that Shuayin was no longer by his side. Looking at the toiletries next to him, Shenlang knew Shuayin must have gone to help those who were ill again. For some reason, he felt somewhat odd inside. Never mind, better not to overthink it, he told himself. Today was the first day to administer the cowpox vaccine in the sacred temple, and he needed to hurry over and start working. An hour later, inside the sacred temple, the first batch of U Kingdom slave test subjects waited orderly under the watch of guards for Shenlang to vaccinate them. This operation was crucial. Thanks to Shenlang's careful modifications, the cowpox-smallpox virus would only cause very mild symptoms. Once successful, he would be able to help the Chang nation permanently resist the scourge of smallpox. By then, he would become the savior of the Chang people. At this moment, the spacious temple, covering 500 to 600 square meters, was filled with thousands of people. Shenlang worried that the group might panic due to their fear of being test subjects. Shenlang was concerned about the possibility of a riot. Just then, amidst the noisy environment, a gentle voice reached his ears. It was Shuayin helping to calm the people. Seeing their response response to Shuayin, Shenlang couldn't help but twitch his lips. The celestial ant really is powerful. Without doing anything but talking, she's more convincing than I am, the real savior. What a sad reality for me. Days later, the majority of the people who were vaccinated showed no adverse reactions. To thank Shenlang and Shuayin, they spontaneously organized craftsmen to make a plaque and saint statues for the temple. Furthermore, after learning that Shuayin was seriously ill and not long for this world, they specially carved a saint statue for her alone and prayed and worshipped day and night, hoping the goddess would recover. On the day the temple's plaque was hung, Crown Prince Arutai quietly came to confirm the news. When he saw the temple's plaque, he fell silent. This Shenlang really has guts. Chang Nation has always worshipped Snow Mountain Temple. Isn't he afraid that those monks will come to retaliate and demolish the temple? At the same time, at the Yu Kingdom's embassy residence, Shenlang was pacing anxiously back and forth in his room. Today was Shuayan's last day, yet Zhongchuk had still not returned. Despite racking his brain these past few days, he had been unable to determine what poison she was afflicted with. Once the poison erupted again, Ant's body would completely freeze, turning into an ice sculpture. I must think harder. My reputation as a divine healer isn't for nothing. I must find a way to save Shuayin. With this thought, he quickly headed towards the inner room, planning to conduct one last thorough examination on Shuayin before her final attack. However, all was in vain. Shenlang used his X-ray vision to scan every cell in Shuayan's body several times, but still could not find any issues. This mysterious illness frustrated Shenlang, a renowned divine healer, to no end, and he even began to doubt himself. Seeing him like this, Shuayin, despite the pain she was enduring, raised her hand to beckon Shenlang over to comfort him. Upon seeing this, Shenlang could no longer control his emotions and burst into tears, hugging Shuayin. He felt incredibly guilty. Shenlang should have been capable of anything, could save an entire nation, but why couldn't he save the person before him? At that moment, Shuayin spoke softly. My dear child, don't be sad. Aunt really isn't afraid of death. Both Zhongchuk and I were supposed to have left with that person 20 years ago. It was only a non-existent obsession that kept me alive until today. That person's death not only destroyed a nation, but also ended the hope of an era. Now that I'm about to join him, I must ask him why such a formidable person suddenly died. Tears of sadness slid down Shuayan's eyes. She lowered her head to look at Shenlang and continued, Shenlang, do you know, the man I loved when I was young looked a lot like you. Even your personalities are similar. Now I am about to die, and you are the one who is with me till the end. Aunt thanks you for your companionship, and no matter what you want to do to me now, I agree. Hearing Shuayan's words, Shenlang instinctively cradled her face. Such a perfect and peerless face. Finally, amidst that intoxicating fragrance, Shenlang kissed her lips. Just at that moment, the poison inside Shuayin finally erupted completely, and the rich fragrance completely ensnared Shenlang. Suddenly, a loud noise awakened the entranced Shenlang. He then realized that a powerful, deadly aura was encroaching on them. A Buddhist chant sounded, followed by a man entering the room, exuding a fierce aura and murderous look. He was the high priest of Snow Mountain Temple. Kuhai, he coldly said, Goddess Shuayin, enjoying yourself, I see. You take the lives of my monks, yet you still live in pleasure here. Kuhai, I've come to seek justice for them. With no other option, Shenlang drew out a rainstorm of hidden blades. Although he knew it could not harm the opponent, he still resolutely stood by Shuayin to protect her. As Kuhai drew closer, Shuayin suddenly let out a warning sound from her throat, and her entire body began to turn bright red. A red light gradually gathered from her dantian to her chest, emitting a blinding golden light. This scene made Kuhai instantly stop in his tracks, and he watched Shuayin in disbelief. Although she was immobile, she could still activate the true energy within her body to self-destruct, releasing decades of accumulated power in an explosion. Even if it didn't kill him, it would severely injure him. Moreover, she was poisoned with the toxin from Floating Mountain, and if it spread to him during the explosion, wouldn't that be a loss too great to justify? However, since she was at the point of self-destruction, it meant that she was at the end of her tether. He only needed to wait quietly for her to die. Thinking this, he turned his gaze to Shenlang and said coldly, Young Master Shen, Chang Nation has only ever had one faith, my Snow Mountain Temple. Are you trying to challenge the authority of Buddha by establishing this sacred temple here? Shenlang furrowed his brow and looked at him. Our temple was built to save people, with no other intentions. High Priest Kuhai, perhaps you are overly concerned. Kuhai scoffed, that temple of yours must be dismantled. As for saving people, you are welcome to continue at Snow Mountain Temple. Hearing this, Shenlang glared at him, grinding his teeth. Demolish the temple? Don't even think about it. With that, Kuhai's lips curled into a sneer. Shenlang, you're just relying on Shuayan's support, aren't you? Let's see if you dare to be so bold without her. The two faced off for a quarter hour, and then another half hour passed. An hour later, Shenlang could no longer stand and simply sat down on a chair, waiting for Kuhai's next move. Kuhai was also puzzled. Given Shuayan's condition, she should have collapsed by now, but so much time had passed. Why hadn't this woman died yet? 2 hours later, Kuhai simply gave up, but before leaving, he still issued a harsh threat. Young Master Shen, I give you half a month to dismantle the sacred temple and hand over the treatment method for free. Otherwise, for the faith of the Chang Nation, we will deploy our monk soldiers, burn down your temple, and annihilate annihilate all your people. After saying this, Kuhai turned and walked out without looking back. Seeing Kuhai leaving, Shenlang finally breathed a sigh of relief, but the glow on Shui Yin's body still hadn't dissipated. As Shenlang wondered about this, he suddenly thought of something and turned to use his X-ray vision to look outside. There he saw Kuhai sneakily crouching at the corner of the wall, waiting to deliver a fatal blow to both of them. Shenlang felt speechless inside. Kuhai, as the high priest of Snow Mountain Temple, is actually spying around the corner. If word of this gets out, where will your face be? Another quarter hour passed, and the glow around Shui Yin gradually faded, and Kuhai really left. However, when Shenlang went forward to call Shui Yin, he found that besides a faint heartbeat and breathing, her entire body had frozen into a statue. Even her eyeballs could no longer move. Not only that, through scanning, Shenlang discovered that although Shui Yin's exterior was frozen, she was still running a high fever internally. A fever? Shenlang suddenly realized something. It seemed that Shui Yin's high fever wasn't caused by the poison, but by some other illness. Besides the fever, Shui Yin showed no symptoms of smallpox. She hadn't been vaccinated, but was around sick people every day. Could it be that she was infected but just hadn't shown symptoms? Suddenly, Shenlang had a thought. Could it be possible that the deadly poison from Floating Mountain and the smallpox virus are combating each other inside Shui Yin's body? In a scenario where poison combats poison, the toxicity of the deadly poison is diminished, so she hasn't died immediately. If this is true, it proves that Floating Mountain's poison is not any known toxin and can lie dormant in her body for years undetected. Is it possible that this toxin is a kind of parasitic life form? Could it be the legendary cursed poison? Floating Mountain really is ruthless. With this thought, Shenlang immediately took out his tools and assembled a simple microscope. He cut Shui Yin's finger, took a drop of blood, and placed it on a slide. With the help of the smart brain and X-ray vision, Shenlang indeed found countless tiny microorganisms in the blood. This confirmed his hypothesis. What Floating Mountain planted inside Shui Yin's body are likely cursed worms capable of releasing neurotoxins. After hatching, these cursed worms continually reproduce in the bloodstream. There are at least hundreds of these worms per milliliter of her blood, and the fragrant scent released during each attack is actually the toxins from the worms paralyzing the nerves. As their number increases, the scent grows stronger. It can be said that Shui Yin's entire body is now completely under the control of the cursed worms. The reason she hasn't died might be because she was infected with the smallpox virus. However, this virus can only survive in the human body for a maximum of 20 days. Shenlang must act quickly to find a way to kill these cursed worms. Meanwhile, in the Grand Hall of Chongqing, after a 10-day vaccination period, the situation with the first batch of vaccinated subjects gradually became apparent. The subjects were brought to the hall, and most of them had developed mild symptoms and were nearing recovery. However, Chongqing could not wait. He ordered these individuals to be thrown into the tents of the severely ill, and pus was smeared on their bodies. He wanted to see if these people would get infected again. 5 days later, news came from the sick area. None of the 50 subjects sent in had been infected. Hearing this, Chongqing was overjoyed, proving that Shenlang's vaccine was genuinely effective. This news quickly spread throughout the entire Chong nation, and countless people surged toward the sacred temple, hoping that the Yu Kingdom's envoy would vaccinate them. At this time, Shenlang sat inside the sacred temple, looking at the crowd outside with a smile on his lips. People's faith is built on deities that can save their lives. The approach of the Snow Mountain Temple, which disregarded the lives and deaths of the people, naturally lost its credibility among the masses. Thinking this, he ordered Shen 13, tell them, if they want to receive the Yu Kingdom's smallpox vaccine, they must kneel in front of the temple and worship, becoming followers of the saint. When the message was conveyed, all the people outside the temple knelt without hesitation. As Shenlang had thought, a deity that could save lives would gain the people's faith. In the following days, the dozens of medical assistants under Shenlang worked overtime to vaccinate the people of Chong Nation, reaching thousands of people each day. Of course, during this period, Shenlang was also busy, devoting most of his time to work. Shenlang spent all his time researching how to kill the cursed insects inside Shui Yin. After countless experiments, he finally made a breakthrough. Unexpectedly, the essence extracted from Big Fool's golden bloodline had a fatal attraction to the cursed insects. Even more shockingly, this golden bloodline was actually golden in color. Can modern science explain this? Actually, it can't. With all the preparations ready, Shenlang also breathed a sigh of relief and started chatting casually with Big Fool. Just then, sudden peals of thunder sounded outside. Shenlang went out to the door, looked up, and saw dark clouds overhead. A few monks from the Snow Mountain Temple walked into the courtyard. Counting the days, today was the deadline that Kuhai had given him. The lead monk spoke. Shenlang, our high priest already gave you a chance to dismantle the temple. Since you are unwilling to do so, tonight prepare for us to cleanse the Yu Kingdom's sacred temple with blood. Shenlang's eyes showed no trace of panic as he performed a fist and palm salute and said, please convey to the high priest that I, Shenlang, accept the challenge. After hearing this, the monk no longer spoke and turned to lead his people out of the courtyard. Once the monks had left, Shenlang said to Big Fool, tonight we will unleash slaughter right here. There will be countless deaths and a river of blood. After that, Tomorrow we will return to the U Kingdom. Go and say goodbye to your wife.